This is an important news segment this week, as I think we've really moved to a new phase of many of the topics that we tend to discuss here on this channel. Are we at the cusp of a wave of change? Are these events that we've been monitoring about to erupt on a much larger scale and envelop the rest of the world? China is showing more civil instability even as its economy continues to decline due to its zero COVID policies. The Russian invasion of Ukraine is moving to a struggle to survive for the civilian population. A train strike, now potentially in early November, is still looming in the United States, and we've covered this a lot here on the channel over the last several weeks. Europe, they're struggling to obtain new energy sources even as their supplies dwindle through winter. And that alone will present some global winners and some losers. And I'll give you a warning also at the end of the video that I hope you'll heed. I'll also announce the winner of last week's giveaway in this video a little further on the video, and we're going to announce the next item that we give around, so definitely stick around to that. So let's jump in. China. There's been a recent increase in protests in China. And these recent protests erupted after a fire broke out in an apartment building. Residents, they had been forcefully locked into their homes for over 4 months. And firefighters were said to have not been let in to suppress a fire because of COVID protocols. When they did reach the apartment, many online indicated that they couldn't even access the building because of the locked doors. At least 10 people died in these fires. And it's difficult to know whether these protests will have any lasting impact or result really in any change. While demonstrations are rising and even calling for China's President Xi Jinping to step down, they're calm compared to the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests. Protests in China, even relatively peaceful and calm ones, they're met with a forceful response from the military and the Communist Party. In many major cities, surveillance cameras are equipped with biometric scanners on every corner. Arrests are made and then people disappear forever, and the authoritarian government erases history. People are put in prison simply for criticizing the president or government. Even today, the largest quarantine camp in China's Guangzhou city is being built. It has 90,000 isolation pods. And we're going to cover that later in much more detail later this week in a video. Now, the immediate recognizable impact is the considerable drag on the global economy that lockdowns and protests create. Apple, for example, is estimating a shortfall of nearly 6 million units worldwide after workers at the largest iPhone manufacturing plant in Zhengzhou, China, protested delayed bonus payments and poor living conditions caused by China's stringent COVID restrictions. Now, that may not seem relevant to many, especially if you're not in the market for a new iPhone. However, you must realize that Apple's situation is really just a highest profile example. According to the UN data, China accounted for 29% of global manufacturing output in 2019. That's obviously a substantial number. So of course the question is, will these protests flare up and get out of control? Well, we're going to discuss that in a much more extended breakout video that I'll release this weekend. Definitely check that out, as this definitely warrants deeper exploration. I do expect the supply chains to become further strained. I expect what is happening in China to unfortunately drag down the global economy even further. Russia and Ukraine. Putin's latest strategy isn't a scorched earth policy, it's more of a frozen earth policy. As the snow has fallen and freezing temperatures descend upon Ukraine, it's estimated that half of Ukraine's energy infrastructure is damaged or completely destroyed, and 10 million people are currently without power. The World Health Organization has documented 703 attacks on health infrastructure since the invasion began. Clearly, the Ukrainian forces, small and mobile, have proven to be quite a challenge for Russia. So the new Russian tactic is to break the will and resolve of the Ukrainian civilization, the population itself. Missile strikes are almost entirely conducted against civilian infrastructure targets, while shelling from Russia heavy artillery has become a daily event along the war's eastern front. Putin is really doubling down at this time, and there's a speculation that he may seek to mobilize another 2 million soldiers from his population, including 300,000 women. This, along with the rumor that he may step down in favor of a hand-picked successor to ease internal tensions, is unsubstantiated information at this point. Neither is unheard of, as Putin stepped down and installed Dmitry Medvedev from 2008 to 2012. He still maintained control despite being the puppet president. Putin is a master at creating distraction and confusion. As such, he's also trying to open a second front in Moldova. Now, Moldova, they've sought to join the European Union since as early as 1994, and they have what's called a PCA, a Partnership and Cooperation Agreement in place. Moldova has strong ties to the EU member state Romania. The poverty level in Moldova, the poorest among the potential EU members, is really a stumbling block to ascension to the status of an EU member state. Protests and explosions are commonplace in the country previously part of the Soviet Union. It currently remains a territory that Putin wants to back into Russian control, and he wants to utilize it right now to open an avenue for a southern front in the invasion of Ukraine. Russia is doing everything it can to really destabilize the country and stoke the fires of conflict in the region along the border with Ukraine. Transnistria, a breakaway state backed by Moscow. Now, Gazprom, they halved natural gas supplies in Moldova. And there's also a power struggle there between pro-Western and pro-Russian-backed political parties. The conflict is further stoked by the fact that Ukraine hasn't been exporting energy for several weeks because Russia attacked its civilian infrastructure. The armed forces of Moldova, numbering around 6,500, are not really a threat to Ukraine. Likely, they wouldn't directly want to engage with their Ukrainian neighbors. As a possible second Russian front, Moldova, armed with Russian heavy artillery and other military personnel and equipment, they would create another front line in the south and threaten Odessa, which is Ukraine's largest seaport, one of the largest in the Black Sea Basin. Now, even if it doesn't ever rise to the level of a second front, internal conflict and strife in Moldova really further destabilizes the whole region and creates a humanitarian crisis. Now, since coming to power, Putin has moved to assert the state's authority and use warfare to bolster his position. We're really just witnessing it on a much larger stage at the moment. We're going to learn many lessons from the Ukrainian people this winter as they struggle collectively and individually to survive this very, very rigid and cold coming winter. This war is changing by the day, but it is far from over. Train strike. A railway strike is still a possibility as early as December 9th. If it occurs, the cost of the United States economy will be calculated in the billions of dollars per day. Agricultural grain like soybeans will struggle to get to the ports, as barge traffic on the Mississippi is already challenged due to low water levels. Food prices soaring will be one of the first notable results of any strike. Gas prices will be next. About approximately 300,000 barrels of oil per day won't move in the railways to refineries. And petrochemicals, they're not going to be picked up from refineries, forcing them to curtail production. About 75% of the completed cars built in the U.S. factories or imported to the U.S., they move by rail, so the economy will immediately take a hit there. In fact, all manufacturing will take a hit, as raw materials and finished products are transported mainly by railway within the United States. Finally, commuter services would be impacted by a railway strike as well, leaving millions struggling to make it to work. It's a problem that we've explored in a more extensive breakout video here on this channel. We did it about a week and a half ago, and I'll link to it in the cards up above and in the comments below. As a prepper, we try to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. But could a strike of that magnitude occur? Of course. Will it, though? Over 400 business groups are already pleading with Congress to prevent a railway strike. Congress and the White House are going to be eager to work to avoid a strike, but both the railway companies and the unions, they know this, and they derive their power from the magnitude and repercussions of a possible shutdown. Knowing this, they're obviously reluctant to make concessions because choosing instead to be forced into making a compromise benefits them greatly. So whatever the inevitable outcome, we will see tensions increase in early December here in the next few weeks and likely see some government intervention to postpone the strike, hopefully. Now, the last rail strike occurred in 1992 after machinists struck CSX Railroad over a contract dispute, and other unions supported their walkout. The disruption caused Congress to act swiftly, passing a bipartisan bill in both houses banning both rail strikes and lockouts of rail employees by railroads. The bill forced arbitration on the parties just before Amtrak workers were set to join the strike. And that bill is also the reason that we haven't had a strike today. It will also serve as a basis for further government intervention to try and avert a strike. We're going to be monitoring this ongoing situation, as you can expect to feel the effects of a strike in the week before it occurs and definitely in the days after. In the meantime, definitely check out our deeper dive into the situation. Again, in a video I'll post up in the link on the cards above and in the description section below that we did about a couple of weeks ago. Economy. Global growth in the economy is projected to slump to 2009 levels or below as the Russian-Ukraine forever war drags on to no end. The zero COVID policies of China mentioned earlier in the video and continued efforts to realign world powers and whatever effort to decouple Asian American routes of commerce will all continue to drag down economies and present challenges to the supply chain and the just-in-time manufacturing efforts. The energy squeeze on Europe, the looming potential for a railway strike in the United States, and record-breaking low water levels on the mighty Mississippi really all point to further economic decline into even next year. When we think of prepping, it's easy to imagine the natural disasters that might befall us and prepare for those. But are you prepping for the possibility of being laid off, let go, or simply priced out of basic needs? By extension, are you prepared to hopefully one day retire? And how's that looking for you? Prepping, it's really about the big picture, the long-range view of your future. At this point, there's almost a 100% chance of a global recession, which will mean a severe downturn in stocks that really comprise most of people's retirement portfolios. Prepping your finances for the short, middle, and long range is essential. There are currently 2 bills before Congress that may allow Americans to set aside tax-free or tax-reduced emergency savings accounts. Either one of these will help Americans, 64% of which are surviving paycheck to paycheck, even as we sink deeper into a recession and really feel the full force of inflation. 20% of Americans have no savings at all. A third of Americans have no retirement plan at all. And things aren't really looking good in the future. It's more bust and boom for sure. I would encourage you to approach your preps with this in mind. Consider downloading one of our free guides on recession-proofing your life and approaching your financial stability and retirement as a prep. Now, in a recent video, I covered the steps that I'm personally taking to prepare for this coming recession. Let me be clear. If you're preparing for things like guns, ammo, or precious metals, but you don't have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund, you're really putting yourself in a very precarious situation. Also, one day, if we're all lucky enough, we will be old. If your hand-to-mouth existence depends upon your ability to work every day, you may be incapable of generating enough resources to survive in your older age. How is your retirement fund looking? I can't tell you with certainty what will happen in the future, but I can promise you that one day you will get old if we all make it long enough, and I would encourage you to plan for it. If you're stocking up on more stuff instead of financial prepping, you're really ignoring the possible things that can wreck your life to prep for unknown circumstances and events. In most cases, the reality, and we all know this, is that money will solve most problems that we may encounter. And I'm not saying that money will be the solution to everything that can happen, but it sure does fix many things in life. I would encourage you to get your finances in order before you worry about prepping for remote possibilities. Giveaway. For this week's giveaway, we're going to be giving away a portable solar panel. To enroll for a chance to be entered into the giveaway, simply post a comment below. And next week, we'll use a tool to draw the winner from the comments on this video randomly. Just be sure your email address shows up on your YouTube account. And this is the most important thing to note. I've been getting a lot of bots that have been slamming my comments, impersonating me, and telling people that they've won. I won't reach out to you unless your name appears on the screen next week. So please ignore and report these comments that are individuals that are spoofing me, that are impersonating me. For last week's winner, we used a tool to draw the name from the comments section randomly, and the winner for the Coleman Lantern is a YouTuber with a handle of Natural Illusion. I'll reach out to you shortly to get that lantern sent to you. Europe's energy future. There's a tectonic shift happening right now in the fossil fuel industry as the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, which is a cartel of 13 countries, including Russia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, they have proven more challenging to work with by the day. That shift is to West Africa, from the Ivory Coast to Nigeria and all along the coast. Large natural gas reserves are being exploited, and new megaports are coming online. Off the coast of Senegal, the GTA gas platform is a big part of the creation of a new energy hub in Africa. There are an estimated 15 trillion cubic feet, enough to support production for the next 30 years or more located in that area. At the same time, one of the many planned transshipment terminal ports has recently come online. An Ivory Coast transshipment terminal has officially opened for business. Notably, that project was financed to the tune of $950 million by China's Exim Bank. While many West African nations are already part of OPEC+, many are not. As countries seek alternatives to high-priced crude from the Middle East and to the supply shutoff of natural gas and oil from Russia, OPEC, they're going to struggle to maintain control even as higher bidders swoop in and try to buy up long-term supply contracts. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz was in Senegal in May, and we will be hearing more and more about the importance of this region the longer the Russian invasion of Ukraine continues. It's too early in this global war where energy is being used as a weapon to see too many moves into the future and understand the ultimate endgame, but we will continue to follow it closely. A few things are for sure. Europe's supply will continue to get lower and lower as winter moves in over the countries. Here's a reality. Most countries are going to seek alternative energy sources. Many countries are going to seek alternative sources of fossil fuels, and energy bills as a result, you guessed it, are going to continue to climb. Energy independence is as vital a prep as any. Your first level is to be able to make it through just a few days after a disaster, but you should be really looking at being able to use less and generate some of your own energy if you hope to survive the coming energy wars and as the battle lines are redrawn. Water warning. Finally, in case you haven't heard, a boil water notice was issued for 2.3 million people in Houston, Texas. There was a power outage at the East Water Purification Plant. Now, many city officials expect to have the situation rectified and the boil order lifted by Tuesday, at the time probably release of this video. But it's an essential sign of the times that we should take note of as we prep for the future. On Thanksgiving, and 2 hours north of Houston in the city of Javala, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, another boil order was issued for its 700 residents. In this case, low pressure, which diminished further to a complete stoppage, led to the city acknowledging multiple infrastructure problems, including a malfunctioning vacuum pump and leaks in several water lines. Now, these are problems that have been decades in the making, and they're not just confined to Texas. We've also seen municipal water infrastructure failings in Jackson, Mississippi, Flint, Michigan, in recent years, to just name a couple of these. These municipal infrastructure systems we take for granted, they often suffer from poor management. Most of them are decades-old infrastructure systems long past their functional lifetime. When replacement pumps, parts, and other massive pieces of equipment are needed, often they can't be found because the supply chain is in disarray. Most people don't think of water until it stops. By then, it's too late. Listen, these infrastructure problems will be the hallmark of our day and age when we look back on them in the future. I encourage everyone to take a moment to focus on their water preps and ensure that they can make it through any long-term disruptions. From storage to the ability to boil after a blackout to water filters and water purification techniques, I would encourage you to take a 360-degree look at your water self-sufficiency. I know there's a lot that we covered in this video. There's a lot of things that are happening in the world, a lot of it going wrong. It feels like we're getting this information on a daily basis. But my hope is that these weekly news updates really give you kind of an opportunity to pull back, take a realistic look at what's happening in the world, and helps you reevaluate your preps or really help guide you as you prepare. If you have any feedback, any thoughts, feel free to post that below. And as always, stay safe out there.